Sunburst, Shining Armor, and True Love by Switched Out. After that, Sunburst had moved to Crystal Empire. He had been focused mostly on his studies on magic, on ancient spells. But even though he had often received messages or letters from his mother to come back for a visit, or at least come back moving home, but he really doesn't want to move back home because he knows one thing that she will do. Try to put him up on dates with mares, obviously, which she knows. She did that often when he still lived in their hometown. And that was the reason why Sunburst suddenly didn't want to leave. He didn't announce that at first to his mother, but one day he decided to tell her that he had been thinking to moving out. And then she thought maybe that he's going to move to another house in the same town. But he decided to tell her that he might decide to move somewhere else in Equestria. But he didn't exactly tell her where. He hasn't even decided himself yet. Either Crystal Empire or Canterlot. His mother tried to convince him to stay there and settle down in his hometown. His family had been living there for generations, so why would he decide just to abandon his home? But Sunburst explained to his mother that it not might be permanently, because he just wanted to study some more magic somewhere else. But he decided even to move back later on, maybe within 2 years or so. But his mother tried still make him to stay, but she agreed. He had learned all about magic from the libraries in his hometown, so he decided to focus on Crystal Empire, which has access to more library, and they even had more skilled unicorns in there. So 2 years have passed. He still hasn't decided to move back home or not. But after that, he decided to stay. Because after he had passed this 2 years limit, he still was going to stay there. His mother had also asked him when he's going back home, and that she had even informed him that she had some very young mares that is ready to settle down. And that was the thing that put him to stay in Crystal Empire. But then he found out his mother is going over to visit within a short time, so he decided, even he wanted to tell his mother right there that he is not interested in dating at the moment, or they're not coming back home, because his mother can be really interested, mostly persistent, that she can decide for him. But even he is an adult now, and he had to make his own decision in life. So Sunburst contacted Starlight and Twilight if it was possible for him to come over for a visit, and both of them agreed. And he actually went there only 2 days before his mother is going to be in Crystal Empire. He then explained to Twilight and Starlight when he arrived to Ponyville why he suddenly came for a visit. And both Starlight and Twilight looked at each other. Are you crazy, Sunburst? She said. I know, but what else can I do? My mother tried to make me go back home and try to marry some mare that I don't even know. I was like, if your father tried to make the same thing for you, Starlight. Starlight knows exactly that that's something her father could do. But you can't run away from your mother the whole time. You have to tell her. Tell her what? Asked Twilight. Starlight knows exactly what she means. You can tell her, Starlight, said Sunburst. Well, Twilight, For the past few years, Sunburst has not even been much into mares as in dating. In fact, you see, Sunburst has been into more stallions rather than mares. Oh, have you ever told any other partner that is Sunburst? She asked. But Sunburst shook his head. Only Starlight knows. Well, except you. Have you ever tried to tell your mother about this? Are you crazy? She would know. She would kick me out of my own home. She would try to stop forcing me to go out with mares, even that she wouldn't even believe it. But you had to tell her at some point, said Twilight. She's right, Sunburst, said Starlight. Not you too, Starlight, he said back. Of all my friends, I thought you were going to support me in this. But you had to at least tell her at some point, or she would find out somehow herself. But Sunburst didn't know what to say. The same afternoon, when Starlight and Twilight was in town, Sunburst was sitting in his guest room, thinking about this, talking about this conversation with Twilight and Starlight he had earlier. Should I tell her? Should I not tell her? He was thinking himself. But then he realized he had to or not. Then he actually wrote to his mother, who was still in Crystal Empire, doesn't even know that he was in Poland. And after that, she wrote back and that she is coming back and going there instead. The next day, she arrived. Starlight took her to the castle where the Sunburst can have his talk. He had asked Starlight and Twilight to be there, but still be somewhere else in the castle so that Sunburst and his mother can have a serious talk in more private. So, Sunburst, you asked me to come here, and you have something to tell me? Yes, I do. Mother, you see, the reason why I just left without telling you from Crystal Empire and not going back home, that is, you want me to settle down with a mare which I don't even know. How is that would that be making me happy? Settle down with marry me with a mare which I don't even have any feelings for, don't even know. What happens if she doesn't even have any feelings for me? Well, that is up to you, my son, she said back. I don't want to marry any of those mares you try to put me up for. His mother was quiet. She had never expected him to react in that kind of answer. But you had to settle down with a mare. Mom, there is something I want to tell you, he said. The reason is why I don't gonna want to marry a mare is that I don't like mares. You're kidding me right now, aren't you? No, Mother, I'm not kidding. I'm not joking about this. I'm not into mares. I'm into stallions. His mother was shocked. She had never expected him to say that. But before he could say anything else, she left. She left the castle and went back home. Twilight and Sunburst, and with Starlight, was talking. So how did it go? She asked. Well, expect from my mom, she found out that I'm stallions and that she basically just ran off. She didn't say much word and just went back home. I'm sorry to hear that, said Twilight. So for the next couple of days, Sunburst remained in Ponyville. At the same time, Shining Armor, Twilight's older brother, came for a visit. and he had actually his permission leave from Candlewood at the time. He actually saw Sunburst sitting in the library crying for most of the time. He then asked Twilight why he's crying. Twilight and Starlight explained everything to her, to her brother, what has happened. She did what? Said Shining Armor. How could she do that? That is her own son. How could she even try to abandon him after that she found out that her own son is into stallion rather than mares? I have no idea, brother, said Twilight. Me either, said Starlight. Maybe I could take him out for, guy talk. Maybe try to cheer him up or something. Appreciate that, said Twilight. Sunburst and Starlight and Shining Armor went to this restaurant just to talk and have some, just try to cheer him up and try to forget what happened. But over time, he said something to Sunburst. You see, Sunburst, there is something else that I want to tell you. What is it? He asked. For most time, when I was in Canterlot, I have been dating a few mares, but Athia was like you, never felt any connection. I thought maybe that's just that I didn't want any connection with them, or just didn't feel right with them or at all. But then, I went out with one of my guard friends, well, just mostly for something to drink, and for some unusual way, I felt more connected to him rather than the mares. But I thought that because we had been a guard for so long time, and that he's a good friend of mine, so I didn't pay much attention to that. But it happened to a few more times to other of my guard friends. And then the same guard for the second time again and again. And turns out I was not into mares at all. I was more into stallions. Are you saying you're into stallions? Not in mares? Sunburst asked. That's correct. And do your family even know about this? Of course, I told them right away. My sister knows. My parents know. And they support it. They support it? Of course, why not? I wish my mom could do the same thing, said Sunburst. You know something, Sunburst? How about this? Why don't you and I go out tonight on a date? That took Sunburst very much as a big surprise. He had never exactly expected Sunburst, Shining Armor, to ask him out. But Sunburst was still trying and said, sure, why not? And they even told this to Twilight, and she wasn't even much surprised. But after this date had passed, both of them were actually very happy. It seems they both had a great time. They went to a restaurant, after that they went to movies, and they just felt connected between them. And it only took maybe about a few months later when Shining Armor had asked Sunbird to be his boyfriend, and both of them said yes to that. At first, Sunbird was very afraid when they wanted to meet his parents for the first time. And Shining Armor had noticed that, but he said, don't worry, my parents only knows about us. They do? He asked. Of course, I told them right after we became together. And my parents are actually very interested to meet you. They already know a lot about you even from Twilight. Oh. And after that he met his parents. At first he was very afraid, mostly scared how they react to meet him. But to much of his surprise, they were actually supportive to both Shining Armor and Sunburst. And then the next one, sometime after that, Shining Armor had asked Sunburst if they got to meet his mother, trying to cheer her up and explained. But when the first time happened, Sunburst explained, "No, I don't want to see her anymore if she said this to me." Shining Armor had no idea how to react. But after several times of trying to convince him, at least try to meet her and see what she had to react. If she still had the same reaction at the same time first time, then he had never to see her, talk to her ever again. That made Sunburst take much time to think, and he agrees. So after when Sunburst was still in Canterlot over Tufflon visit, and that Shining Armor had permission leave from his duty, both of them actually went to Sunburst's home. And on the way there, Sunburst was mostly nervous and how this meeting would go to turn out. And it turns out that his mother was not still past this after those past few months. But after that she met Sunburst and Shining Armor, she thought, and Sunburst had said to his mother, "Mother, if you don't agree to be with Shining Armor, I don't want to talk to you anymore, and if we have a family of our own, you will never have any contact with them at all. That is my only option to say to you, Mother. Take it or leave it." Then he saw that she started to cry. It turns out she had actually regretted what he said to her own son months ago. But she was terrified how he would react if she tried to tell him that he didn't want to believe her, so she didn't say anything. And it turns out Sunburst forgave her, even if it took some time for them to reconnect and try to rebuild their relationship again. And even though his mother had actually accepted Shining Armor as part of the family, and at first she was still a little bit skeptical if this relationship or even going to work, she even may admit that to them, which they both agreed that only time can tell if this relationship turns out to working or not. But Shining Armor and Sunburst's relationship remained strong. And they were together for past maybe 5 years later when Shining Armor actually proposed to Sunburst. And Sunburst was never going to be more happier than that day ever since. The wedding was actually held in Canterlot. Spike was asked to be Sunburst's best man, and even Big Mac to be Shining Armor's best man, and Twilight had been asked to be the one to perform the ceremony. Shining Armor and Sunburst actually celebrated their honeymoon at Saudi Arabia for 2 weeks. But then, barely 4 years later, they decided to start their own family. So they actually adopted 2 daughters and 1 son at the local orphanage in Crystal Empire. And they even had this great time together with their new family together. Twilight was happy to be an aunt, and his parents, both their parents was actually happy to be grandparents. And that's how Shining Armor and Sunburst from the True Love got a family. The end.